Imagine waking up to a sudden escalation in the Middle East, where tensions have reached a boiling point, and the world's most powerful militaries are moving rapidly into action. After an Iranian strike targeted an American oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, the United States issued an immediate order to deploy one of its most formidable naval assets, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, CVN-71. Within moments of receiving the command, the massive aircraft carrier sprang to life as sailors and soldiers moved with precision and urgency. On the pier, troops already on high alert grabbed their gear and began boarding through the gangways, their movements disciplined and coordinated. These forces would soon be distributed across escort cruisers and destroyers, tasked with protecting vital oil tanker convoys traveling through the narrow and strategically critical Strait of Hormuz, a region long considered one of the most volatile maritime choke points in the world. As preparations intensified, the mooring lines were cast off one by one, and the giant vessel slowly separated from the pier. Dock crews secured the ship for departure while sailors deep inside the carrier organized supplies, ammunition, rations, and equipment. Crates were moved through narrow passageways and stacked carefully in designated compartments. In the anchor room, sailors hauled in the heavy anchor chain link by link using powerful machinery, while others coiled thick mooring ropes and secured them for the journey ahead. Soon, the chief petty officer overseeing the anchor detail reported to the bridge that the forward section was secured and the ship was ready to move. Orders were relayed to harbor tugboats, which carefully pushed and guided the enormous carrier through the harbor channel. Once clear of the port, the tugs cast off, and the carrier surged forward under its own nuclear-powered engines, heading into open water where its escort ships quickly formed a defensive ring around it. Within hours, guided missile cruisers and destroyers took up screening positions around the carrier, forming a powerful carrier strike group capable of both defending itself and launching offensive operations if necessary. On the flight deck, activity was already in full swing. Maintenance crews moved quickly between rows of fighter jets, loading air-to-air and air-to-ground missiles onto the wing pylons of aircraft. Each weapon was secured carefully, electrical connections tested, and bright red safety pins installed to prevent accidental activation. Mechanics conducted meticulous inspections, opening access panels, checking hydraulic systems, examining landing gear, clearing engine intakes, and running diagnostic checks on the aircraft's advanced avionics. Among the aircraft preparing for combat were the cutting-edge F-35 Lightning II fighters and the proven F/A-18E/F Super Hornet jets, both essential components of the carrier's air wing. Pilots climbed into their cockpits and began running through pre-flight checklists, carefully testing engine power levels while ground crews monitored exhaust output and system readings. Control surfaces were moved through their full range to ensure everything was functioning perfectly, and radar systems were powered on and verified operational. Each aircraft that passed inspection was moved to a standby position, ready for launch at a moment's notice. Meanwhile, another operation was unfolding on a different section of the flight deck. Troops assigned to escort duty were preparing to board their transport aircraft, the remarkable V-22 Osprey. With their rotors folded and rear ramps lowered, the aircraft waited as soldiers climbed up from the lower decks, crossed the busy flight deck at a quick pace, and filed inside. Once everyone was seated and strapped in, the rotors unfolded and the engines roared to life. One by one, the Ospreys lifted off vertically before tilting forward and accelerating toward nearby escort cruisers, where the troops would help defend vital shipping routes from potential missile attacks. Back on the carrier's forward deck, fighter jets lined up on the catapults. Pilots secured their harnesses and completed final checks, while the catapult crew hooked each aircraft to the launch shuttle. Massive jet blast deflectors rose behind the engines to shield the deck crew from the intense heat and thrust. When everything was ready, the pilot pushed the throttles to full power. With a thunderous burst of energy, the catapult fired and the jet shot forward off the bow of the carrier, launching into the sky within seconds. One after another, aircraft were hurled into the air in a carefully choreographed rhythm. Launch, reset, reposition, launch again. The carrier's air wing was being fed into the mission as quickly as the deck crew could prepare the next aircraft. Not far away, one of the escort cruisers received an order to initiate a strike mission. On its deck, the hatches of the vertical launch system opened in sequence, revealing rows of missile cells beneath. Moments later, Tomahawk cruise missile rockets erupted from the launch tubes in bursts of flame and white smoke. Each missile climbed vertically into the sky before tipping forward and accelerating toward distant targets. Their destinations were carefully selected military installations deep inside Iran, radar stations, command centers, and weapons depots considered critical to the country's defense network. Guided by sophisticated navigation systems, the missiles streaked across the horizon on separate flight paths toward their objectives. Meanwhile, the steady rhythm of flight operations continued on the carrier. More fighter jets launched and headed east toward the Middle East, joining aircraft already conducting missions in the region. The operation was relentless. As soon as one aircraft launched, another rolled forward into position. Catapults reset within minutes, sending the next jet roaring into the sky. The massive warship functioned like a floating airbase, capable of sustaining continuous combat operations far from home shores. Eventually, one of the Super Hornets crossed into Iranian airspace. Earlier operations had weakened some of the air defense systems in the region, allowing the pilot to approach the target area more effectively. Using an advanced targeting pod, the pilot scanned the terrain below, identifying military vehicles, equipment, and defensive positions displayed on the cockpit's digital screen. Once a target was selected, the pilot locked onto it and released a precision-guided munition. The bomb dropped silently before guiding itself toward the designated coordinates. Seconds later, the target was struck with a controlled but devastating explosion. The aircraft banked sharply, acquired another target, and repeated the process, methodically striking assigned objectives with remarkable precision. After completing the mission and expending its weapons, the fighter turned back toward the carrier strike group waiting hundreds of miles away at sea. There, the aircraft would land, refuel, reload, and prepare for the next mission as part of an ongoing cycle of operations designed to maintain pressure and control the rapidly escalating situation. In modern warfare, the speed of response, coordination of technology, and discipline of trained personnel can determine the outcome of critical moments. And in this unfolding crisis, every launch, every patrol, and every decision at sea carried enormous consequences for regional stability and global security.